Country Club Road Subcommittee. Hi, everyone. We're figuring out what the issues are with the tech, so please hold tight.
We made it. We're coming over. We were all on the wrong link, but we're back.
Sal, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. We're all in the right place.
Can you hear me?
I
can hear
can.
you.
Yeah.
Oh my
Good.
gosh, what a
Yeah.
Wednesday morning. All right. We can hear each other and we're in the right room.
All right. So great. All right. So we're gonna start the meeting over since we had a confusion of links. I think everyone who wanted to be in the meeting is making their way in. So I will call to order the meeting of the Country Club Road Subcommittee at 8:11 a.m. Without objection, the agenda will be approved. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Now comes an opportunity for members of the public to comment. Would anyone online care to comment? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4. Without objection, minutes of previous meetings will be approved. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. All right, we're back to where we were when the confusion began. Item 5, deliberations on the Country Club Road proposals. Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind starting over again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good to see everybody. So where I want to start today, well, let me say, when we had our meeting last week, we preliminarily discussed some of the proposals and where we were, and narrowed the field to 3. And the assignment for subcommittee members was to provide me with questions for the developers and to really give me all of the thoughts you had on the proposals to date. So after I reviewed those, and I reviewed all of the submissions by the developers, we've had the interviews, and I've absorbed all the public feedback. I want to take a slight step back in this process with the committee right now to take kind of a macro look at where we are and where we need to go. And specifically, I want to remind us what we were tasked with. This subcommittee was tasked with finding a partner for the development of Country Club Road. And really what that means is not picking a plan and just letting it go and just saying, this is it, and press play. It's finding somebody to work with and have compatibility with. And this is a long-term investment in the partnership. And so I want to make sure we keep that front and center. And really, to me, it's a threshold question. So the threshold question is the partnership, specifically financial capacity, professional capacity, and shared vision with the city. Once those thresholds have been met, then close second is the design. So what I'm suggesting, when I read through the questions from subcommittee in the last few days, I was noticing how granular the questions were. They were very specific to design questions, design innovation, design funding, financial questions. And when I thought about it, I realized we really need to take a bigger look at what we're asking from all of the developers, and that the design question has a lot more nuance to it depending on which developer we're talking about. So it's my advice that we go back, we now go back to the developers that you choose for the next phase and have folks do a rethink about, now given what they know from the city, given the questions that we can give them, like I suggest we give them the questions, but not expect answer by answer questions. Rather, give them a period of time, could be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, that's to be determined, but give them the questions and give them the feedback, the public feedback, summarized public feedback from that input form, to go back and give us their next iteration, basically. What is fill in the gaps, but make it comprehensive. I don't want to piecemeal this. I'm feeling like we're asking lots of small questions to form a big picture, and really it's on them as our partner to give us the new big picture and really round us out. So my recommendation is that we select the proposals that we want to select to come into this next phase, give them a summary of the public input, and also summarize their strengths and weaknesses, like where we find where it would be hard for the subcommittee to decide to select them and why, and then the strengths of their proposal. And therefore they have that information to go back to the drawing board. For some, that's going to be, a redesign, a rethink of the layout. For some, it's going to be a rethink of the mix of units, the mix of ownership, that kind of thing. But really make sure that they understand what we've been thinking before they go back to that. The question, if the subcommittee is comfortable with that, then the question is who gets invited to that next step? And that is a question of who has passed that threshold of partnership expectations.
Stephanie, can I just,
Yeah.
There's another question there too, which is if we were to move in the direction that you've just outlined, who's doing that work, right? Is that the work of the subcommittee to summarize and ask these questions and send it back to the developer? You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
There's a whole scope of work there, and I just want to understand who's going to do that.
Yeah, I believe it would be supported by Whitenberg, but given to the subcommittee, and subcommittee would then send that to we would send that to the developers. Yeah.
And so then the subcommittee would then evaluate as well. I mean, because we've discussed somewhat in the past reconfiguring or a handoff to staff.
I believe it would be, yeah, and I should say I should ask staff. Mike can opine, and Matt, if he's on, I can't see, but if you agree with this, but I did talk with staff over the last 2 days to see if this felt like the right approach. And then I think, coming up with the questions, consolidating the questions, quite frankly, I don't think we need to spend, I don't want to burn a ton of consultant time when these developers are perfectly capable of doing this. We can hand them a bucket of questions. Since they're not being asked to review every single one, part of what I realized in the last few days when I got everybody's questions is it would probably take approximately 3 hours to pull all the questions together and put them and consolidate them and merge them and make them in categories that make sense. And that's work that we don't need me to do right now. Rather, the developers could read them and they can get a sense of what's being asked. And maybe there are specific questions that they're going to need to call out in their response materials. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're professionals and they know how to answer our questions. And then we'll go back when we get their review, their new materials in 4 to 6 weeks, and make sure that our questions are answered. So I don't know. Sorry, I just wanted to see if anyone else had a comment or, oh, that's right. Matt's not going to be on this meeting. That's right. I knew that. Sorry. Thanks, Mike.
So
But
do we have a specific, like, what is the specific ask that we're going back to with developers if we give them 4 to 6 weeks? Do we know specifically what we're asking them to do?
I think it should be specific to each developer.
Okay.
So I think it depends on which developers are invited to be part of this next step. And then we need to give them, because of that strengths and weaknesses matrix, you know, maybe for some it's financial, maybe some it's design, maybe some it's some element of some mix of both. How to,
but also homeownership versus rental, those issues.
Yeah, mix of home ownership versus rental.
So are we going to do that today?
I think it depends on if we have time, but I think we need to select who's getting decided. That's going to be the next step. And what I would say is that, you know, all of this is leading to us having a development agreement with one of these developers and making a decision on this developer. And I just want to advise that, you know, as I've done these many times, in getting to a development agreement, there is a negotiation eventually. You know, they are our partner, but you form a partnership. And so you want to make sure you're in the strongest position to hold the cards you want to hold when you're in that negotiation. So some of the thinking around this process, I would suggest should be done in confidence, in a confidential way, because you're really setting up the strategy for the negotiations. And so I think that needs to happen before we decide what exactly they're coming back to us with, and we can start to build out that matrix of strengths and weaknesses, Adrian.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean, I guess I agree that really needs to be done in confidence. It's already 8:20. It seems to me that we need to do this in executive session.
So can I just, I actually agree with that, but I think, can we just continue on this? I'm cognizant of the time, but can we continue on this process question just a little bit longer, just so we can have a sense of what the direction that we're moving in? It feels to me like you've just outlined a good process, right? But it also feels to me like this is an important point to check in with the council, to be like, this is right. Like, let's make sure that we're all on the same page around the charge of the subcommittee. I think, right?
I will say I put a note together. I didn't get a chance to send it to the full subcommittee yesterday, but I did send it to Sal with, because you'd asked in the last meeting for an updated timeline. I have a timeline without dates. So I have steps, and then I figured we'll fill in the dates plug in the dates once we know what the period is that we need to give folks. But I was going to suggest that, because you mentioned last week that the meeting on 4/22 is the next council meeting, and that it would be a great opportunity for an update. And I would suggest that it's an update, not necessarily a chance for any kind of change to the plan, because this is following what we'd already been charged with, which is to select a partner. Because what we would do is then submit to them the timeline, tell them what the steps are, tell them what we've done to date, because including the interviews, narrowing it down, Penrose, not being invited to the next step, and then see what happens, from today's meeting, and just give them an update on all of that. Unless you think that we haven't included them. I guess I'm out of date too, because I'm a month out, but the fact that we haven't included them on some of the, the mechanics of how this gets to the finals.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of that's the fundamental question for me, right? Sure. It's like, if we're going to winnow down the group, like we said that we were going to go back to the committee or to the council with a recommendation, right? And so I just want to be clear about what we're doing. Like if we're winnowing the field, right? Like we've said to Penrose, like, thanks so much, we're moving in different direction. But like at a certain point, right, we don't want to be winnowing the field that we're making the ultimate decision for council. We want to provide them with the opportunity to approve our recommendation.
I thought it was just you go to them with
With
the
one?
final. Yeah. Well, in
I
our
thought that too.
Okay.
original timeline, back when we were going to make a recommendation that they decided on 4/22, because that was the original
Right,
timeline.
right.
It was send a memo out
Okay.
Friday that has your
With one
selection
recommendation.
and the reasons why.
Okay.
But if you don't think that's
No,
the right
I just
thing,
want to make sure that we're all on the same page about it. Like,
Sure.
I mean, I feel comfortable with that, but I
Mhm.
just want to make sure everybody else on the subcommittee does too.
Well, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's a good question. I'm not sure I agree that the charge was to winnow it down to one and recommend that while, you know, having cut essentially, you know, cut the link to the other proposals. I mean, we're making a recommendation. Are we just assuming the council will rubber stamp it? I mean, it seems to me if the council itself is making the decision, we need to leave the options open, but clearly state our reasons for the recommendation that we're making.
To follow that logic, we shouldn't have said anything to Penrose last week. I'm just
Well-
gonna say, just for the.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I think what's happening is this project has gotten a lot of public attention, which it should, right? So it's a very, very important project. Lots of input from our constituents and lots of excitement, really. I think there's, you know, people are interested in this. It's one of the biggest developments Montpelier will have probably ever. And, you know, as a counselor, it's their job to respond to their constituents. That is our job. And so when they get asked questions from their constituents and they're unable to answer it, it puts them in a really difficult position. And I feel like we're not doing our job as a subcommittee. And so, how do we do our job better to provide information, to share information, to provide updates so they feel equipped and they have the tools and the resources and the knowledge to share with their no one wants to stand there and be like, oh, I don't know what's happening, and that's what's happening. So I think it's, you know, how do we provide information along this journey so that people have information that aren't, you know, I mean, we still do have information in the subcommittee that has not been shared with the full council. So I think that's not good. And how do we repair that? And what, because they're ultimately going to have to make a decision. We can get to that final city council meeting and three of the counselors could just be like, we haven't been given our due diligence to make a data informed decision. And I just feel like that's, you know, how do we do a better job to bring them along?
Well, it seems like this is all coming down to whether we're going to go ahead with this 4 to 6 week process with all three of the remaining candidates or with a lesser number. And
It also, though, Sal, I would argue,
Yeah.
you know, I think it almost puts a pause on the whole thing for until next week's meeting if you're going to ask the bigger question, because then I would say we can't, you know, we've already made one of those decisions with letting Penrose go. And so I don't
Yeah.
even know if it's a question about just the three, but rather actually the four and what they want us to do. Do they want us to release any along the way that we've deemed aren't going to meet the thresholds? And so process wise, I just have a question about subcommittees because I'm not familiar with the structure here in Montpelier. It would seem that the city council as a 7-person board can't make these kinds of decisions, can't put this time in, can't do this as a committee itself, right? That's why they created a subcommittee. And so they can't create they created the subcommittee so that they could charge the subcommittee with doing it and trust that decision, that work is being done in earnest. So I agree with Adrian. I think more information getting back up to them makes a lot of sense. And so to do an update next week, do an update in a month, do more periodic updates with more, maybe more like substance, more meat on the bones about what is being done. But it was my expectation from the beginning, I will say, that this would come back to the full council with a full explanation of why and what happened and why the others were not selected, and make a educated reason, because otherwise every other committee member, every other counselor has not been in every meeting. They don't know the nuances of all of the stuff. They haven't read in depth the way that you have. So I thought that there was a trust and understanding between subcommittee and full council that that's what you've been tasked with. And if they wanted to individually attend these meetings and learn more and ask more questions, that they're welcome to. But I would have a hard time understanding how someone who's not been in every meeting could make an educated decision between, if we were to give them two, for example, how would they make that decision? I guess they'd have the recommendation from subcommittee, but how would they have their own independent analysis of which one to select?
Well,
That's my question.
your points are well taken. I when Ben mentioned following up on process, I thought perhaps, Ben, you were suggesting that we wait until we present this whole idea to the subcommittee, but it sounds like that's not what you had in mind. And frankly, at this point, I don't think it would make sense to go back to the full council with a decision like that, unless we, until we decide whether we're going forward with two proposals or three proposals. If we're going ahead with all three, we can just go ahead. If there's a question that we want to narrow it down to two, then we ought to do that narrowing and then go to the council or decide whether we need to go to the council and explain what we want to do.
So maybe the full committee, the full council decision can be revisited at the end of this meeting after executive session,
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
based on whatever is decided.
I think you're facing this challenge because you're not the legislature that has a committee structure that works quite the same, but you've empowered as a council a 3-person subcommittee with staff support and consulting support. I think the council entrusted the subcommittee to do quite a bit of work to bring a pretty fully baked concept of what is best for the city moving forward. And I don't think you should be doubting whether or not the subcommittee was given a clear charge. Unless you have been told by counselors, you're only supposed to review them and tell us what you think of each one of them. We want to be the ones who, advance one over all the others or eliminate proposals. But I think you were given, I feel like you were given, and you've spent a significant amount of time and effort understanding the projects and understanding the teams that have proposed them and so the projects. So I feel like you have done the work up to now. And I guess I feel, having sat on the other side as a counselor for a different city, but that's what the other counselors are hoping you all are going to do, is come back with a solid recommendation. And
I think, yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation, as awkward and challenging as it is. Like, I think what we were charged with is going back to the council with a recommendation saying, like, this is the developer, or maybe these are the 2 developers, right? But like, the subcommittee does all these interviews, does all this research, has all these conversations, writes a recommendation back to the full council that says, this is how we should believe you should proceed. Either none of these are viable, this one's the best one, these 2 are worth exploring more, but some kind of recommendation that goes to the council. And then I think at that point, there's a conversation for the council of like, is this going to be driven by staff? Do we want to empower the subcommittee to keep going? Do we want to do it as full? I think it's completely unreasonable to think a full council is going to do that work, right? But I feel like that's the assumption that I've been working on, of like, what our charge was, is to make this recommendation to the council. What I worry about, and your point on Penrose is very well taken, But what I worry about is like removing people from the process in a way that doesn't allow us, that it's like you can have whatever you want as long as it's this, right? And so I just feel like we want to provide a little bit of flexibility to the council to accept our recommendation, but that it's not a.
So one way to go is that you could provide the full council, if we can narrow the field, or when we get to the point that every proposal you're going to show them is viable and meets the shared vision. We may have a feeling and we've done enough due diligence to think we really strongly recommend this one has the strongest threshold of partnership, is meeting all the requirements, and has the most viability. But this other option is also viable and also shares the city vision. So you could do that. That could be the point at which you go back to council with another decision. It's not a final it is a recommendation. You could wait, I don't think we're there yet. I'm just going to say that. That's why we need another step, because none of the ones we've seen so far, we can say to a full council, I would not say as your consultant, they're viable. And we know that and we feel comfortable. We're not there yet, but we'll get there with at least one. So maybe we have two, or maybe we have three, but we want to get to the council. If we can get to the council and there are more than one that we can say have viability and shared vision, then that could be a path. We just have to, I don't think we're there yet. We don't know yet.
Kelly, go ahead.
I would say, in my opinion, the opportunity to report out and check in next Wednesday, along with the updated timeline, is to reaffirm the committee's charge. Because I think it has been articulated that there is some risk that not risk that I don't expect that the recommendation of the subcommittee is expected to be rubber stamped. There definitely is an expectation of individual analysis and review and understanding both why any one developer is recommended and why any one developer has been excluded. And so I think the opportunity for the check-in with the bigger council is to say that question of, do you wish us to continue along this path as a group of three, or do you wish at this point to bring this process to the whole committee? I don't think there's a clear, or to the whole council, sorry. I don't think there's a clear articulation of that. There has been, individual members who have indicated that without their ability to fully analyze this on their own, they will not feel comfortable voting to select a developer or entering into a contract with a selected developer. There have been requests that we share all of the information, relevant information from the subcommittee to the full council, and we're actively compiling that repository of information now. So I would say that for today's meeting, you continue under the charge that you have, and then we do that check-in on Wednesday with the council to either re-endorse or, bring it to the broader group of 7.
And I won't be there on Wednesday, just so everyone remembers that. Okay.
School breaks. This is school break.
Yeah.
Too. Mhm.
And I think I just want to be very clear. So for Wednesday, we're going to actually have a presentation. Like, remember I did last time, the PowerPoint, the slides. Like, I think it's important not just to talk about an update, but to share where we've been, what we're doing, where we're going, what the risk of, the 2 paths to take. What happens if we sunset the subcommittee? What does the full council responsibility look like in terms of time, effort, analysis? Like, what does that path look like? And then what does the path look like with the subcommittee continuing our work? And what is that new updated timeline with dates, Stephanie, to present back to council? Like, I think I want to lay it all out there and understand that we're taking burden away from council because we spend 20 hours a week doing this. And if that's what they want to do, I think we have to very articulately explain what that means. So I think being very clear about that.
Sal, I don't know if Kelly still has a question.
Yeah, I don't know either. Kelly, your hand's still up?
I don't in
Okay.
front of her. Okay. I just wanted to ask, I guess I'm actually confused. So again, out of the loop for a month, this gives me an opportunity to play dumb. I don't know what the council hasn't known. I actually thought that the council had been briefed pretty routinely, now that I think about it, because the last time I talked to you, Adrian, or the last time we met as a crew, I heard that Adrian was giving an update to council and giving information, and then all the information that's readily available on the website. Is it only that there's counselors who would prefer to see the confidential information as well? Is that kind of the missing piece?
Yeah, I think that, so I've tried to do an inventory of what's on the website, right? Because there's information that's on the website that's public. There's information that's come to just the subcommittee.
Yep.
That is marked confidential.
Yep.
So it's not on the website.
I have those right at
Mark.
hand. I don't know if that's helpful, Kelly. I have it all in it.
So I think it'd be nice to just loop everyone in. They can have information. They can read it like it should. I think the process flow should be council receives it. This is what we talked about last meeting. Council receives information, subcommittee takes a deep dive.
Well, and I thought all council now has access to all of the confidential information.
I think there's a couple pieces.
Bring the
So
board. That's it.
yeah, and again, we're clarifying that internally, but I'll just say like there's things like internal group memos from like our planning commission that went just to the subcommittee that haven't been rolled up to the full council. You know, there's the request from like, you know, how would this affect DPW, police, things like that, memos that have been provided just to the subcommittee that haven't rolled up to the full council. And so there is that level of information that's being requested for full council's understanding. And so part of it is available publicly. Part of it has been, is on the website, I should say. Part of it is been shared with just the subcommittee alone. Part of it has been shared with subcommittee and the full council. So there is a mix of that, and trying to get organized around, what is all getting to the council is kind of the work that we're doing now, because, like I wasn't operating under the assumption without them having articulated that they all wanted that information.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's not,
we're responding to a specific request and doing that work right now.
I understand. Yeah, it's just, that's not the more common structure here, because it's not something that it's kind of what Adrian said about 20 hours is not wrong. It's the idea that you're kind of in or you're not. It's hard to be partially in and well informed.
I think we can totally acknowledge this, right? Like I think typically a full council would authorize the subcommittee for a specific task. Go ahead and do that. We trust you. Like you're going to make a recommendation. We'll have questions about the recommendation. If we want to see backup information about your recommendation, great. I think we're a little bit more porous here, right?
Yeah.
And so at the same time, I still think we're still going to get to Rome, right? If we can just
bring everybody.
I think we just need to we just need to have that check-in on Wednesday, update them on where we are, and say, if in fact this is what they want us to do, to affirm that we are going to make a recommendation of a direction we believe they should move forward in. And if they don't want to do that as a full council, then really look forward to hearing other ideas about how this moves forward.
Yep. I better put this.
So are you suggesting we postpone this decision, whether or not to go forward?
Maybe maybe the decision, but not the discussion. And
Right.
we have to get into executive session with our time remaining, because we have some discussion to have.
Yeah. But
All right. Well, we don't have a lot of time. If we're going to discuss all three proposals, I think we need to do that next, and that probably requires confidentiality.
Sal's point of order, Steve Whitaker here. You don't have a counterparty. You don't have a real estate negotiation. You've got no basis to conduct this deliberation in executive session. So I'm putting on the record that you're allegedly violating the law, and that
your comments are noted, Steve.
This is a real estate negotiation, so.
Yes, I agree. So we require, if we're going to do that, we require a finding and a motion. I believe you both have language,
Yeah.
or
I'm happy to read finding. If it's okay, I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the subcommittee's evaluation of developer proposals to the Country Club Road RFQ, written or oral responses by developers to subcommittee questions would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage because discussion in public risks disclosing information that could compromise the city's negotiating strategy.
And this is contract negotiations.
Second that?
is there a second?
Second?
Adrian? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we now need the motion for executive session.
I'll make that motion as well, if that's okay. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the city's evaluation of developer qualifications and proposals under the provision of Title I, Section 313A, 1A, and 2 of the Vermont statutes.
Is there a second?
Second, and who are we inviting into that?
I would ask that we invite the city manager, city planning staff, our consultants from White and Burke. Thank you, Adrian.
You would second the motion as amended?
Second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
And staff. Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, I believe we have a link in email from Evelyn, so we'll see you in the other meeting, and we'll come back to this one, which is from the agenda. Okay, great. All right.
I have to work this entire conference. I've got so many things happening. I know what I'm doing there.
Okay, we are back.
I move that we come out of executive session.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Well, we have no specific action after executive session. We have had a discussion of the remaining proposals and have decided to prepare options at the next council meeting for next steps in the process, and to reaffirm our charge from the council to make a specific recommendation for going forward. Next on the agenda is the timeline review.
I don't have one.
We don't really have one. We know we're delayed, but probably by next week, that would be something we'd work out.
Yeah, I think two things on timeline. One is that I think I need to put something together in the next couple of days about process and steps without specific dates yet, maybe time frames like 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, but not because we don't know based on what council might decide next week. I can do that. Number two, I think we need to schedule another subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
Sooner than later. When do we
Yeah,
do
that's
that?
true. Yeah, I don't know if we have one on the calendar.
We don't. So like the 22nd is the council meeting. Do we do it then the 23rd or 24th? Next week.
I am out all next week. It's our
Yeah,
spring
let's
break.
not do it. It's break week.
So could we do?
27th, 28th,
Yeah,
29th. Anything for anybody?
28th would be ideal for me if that works for people.
I can do 28th.
I could do the 28th. I just have a call at 9.
Well, we know we finish on time every time, Adrian. What do you
Yeah, I
talking
know.
about?
That's right. We're always right on the
I'm
money.
on another call, so I'm trying to.
I can.
Yeah,
Sorry, I can do the 27th or 28th. The rest of the week is hard for me. I'm out of town.
I can do either. Adrian?
27th is sooner. I'm just going to say.
Let's do 27th, and that way, yeah.
I have a call at 9:30, so I have a little bit of wiggle room.
All right, extra half hour. Let's
Okay.
bill it for 90
Okay.
minutes. So
Yeah.
let's schedule it for 90 minutes
You
on
want
the
to schedule
27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Evelyn, is that okay? Do you have that on 27th from 8 to 9:30? Yep. There's a thumbs up. Sweet.
All right.
Yeah, I won't be
Good deal.
available on those days, but I think
Oh.
Stephanie will have, and everyone will have my thoughts. And I think Matt will be here for that one.
Okay.
So
I'll
yeah,
grab you.
I'll be out of state.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Item 7, communications update. Anything there? We'll have plenty of communications after next week's meeting.
Maybe Adrian, maybe I could connect with you to think about you did such a great job in that presentation last time for council, recognizing you're not going to be there. Maybe you and I could collaborate on it a little, or
Yeah, I think we should definitely do like a formal update. I mean, slides, have like a 1-pager. I think this is critically important that we lay it all out there. And I have time. We leave on Sunday morning. So between now and then, I think we should do it. Let's decide like an hour or two and just knock it out.
Yeah, and the presentation itself is almost never in the packet. It's really just a note that the presentation will be made. And then, so in the past, we've had all sorts of presentations that weren't ready or weren't available to anyone until later in the week, the week of the meeting.
On the
Okay,
27th,
great.
I also think that communications piece should include what we want to put, how we want to message more to the public, because Wednesday will be a council, but the outward stuff,
Right.
Maybe message some front porch forum stuff and get
totally.
a campaign going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think asking the council when we have this charge discussion, the presentation ought to be really leading up to,
Yeah.
to their decision on that.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else? If not, we will adjourn.
Thanks, everybody.
Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.